Welcome to the Two Doors podcast, where we open the doors to Australia's top minds in tech, talent, and transformation. Hosted by Alexander Gill, founder of Two Doors Recruitment, we cut through the noise with real conversations from leaders building the future of work. Subscribe to the show to hear and see more of these types of conversations. Let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Two Doors podcast. I am here with Phillippa. Phillippa has over 20 years experience in tech, starting at grassroots service desk and working her way up through the tech stacks, moving into security consulting, including writing policy, assessing security architecture, and undertaking GRC reviews. Phillippa has sat in pretty much every tech and cyber seat in the building. This gives her a unique lens and understanding on the drivers and motivators across business units and stakeholders. With a passion for the people side of cybersecurity and bringing everybody on the journey, she loves to be the cyber storyteller, helping organizations and individuals work together to build resilience. Recently relocated to Melbourne from the windy wilds of Wellington, New Zealand, she's keen to share her love of all flavors of cybersecurity with a wider audience. Phillippa, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, I'm very excited for today because we've had some brilliant discussions and my heart is from New Zealand. It's a brilliant country. And what's been going on lately?
Well, settling into Melbourne, have only been here since November, so learning about the intricacies and quirks of the Aussie culture and especially the Aussie cyber culture. Lots of similarities, but also lots of differences. So it's been a great learning experience.
Interesting. What have you seen as some of the differences?
Well, I think for starters, job titles are very different over here. There's a lot more specialisation because the market is so much bigger. Organisations are also a lot bigger here. So going from working in consulting across government in New Zealand to working in a company that has over 40,000 employees is a huge eye-opener.
I can imagine, because how many people are in government? Because New Zealand's a smallish country, right, in terms of millions of population.
Yeah, so the population of New Zealand is equivalent to the population of Melbourne. So going from Wellington being quite a small, intimate city to coming to Melbourne, which is equally as culturally diverse, but huge people, land, businesses. I thankfully haven't gotten lost yet, so I would love to thank Siri and Google Maps for that.
It's an awesome country, and I'm very happy to be living here as someone who grew up in London and then lived in New Zealand for a few years. And jumping straight into it, we had a brilliant discussion. I'm really excited to dive into some of this. But how do you see, or what is the importance of mentorship?
Well, I think mentorship is really important, especially when you have university graduates or college and high school students that have an interest in cyber. And you've seen all the headlines saying that we have a skills shortage in cybersecurity. So the more that we can do to bring these graduates and interested parties on the journey and get them transitioning into cyber is so vital, because it can be quite an intimidating space to move into, especially when you've got so many knowledgeable people that you don't want to look stupid, basically. So being a mentor is really, really important. We all have niche knowledge and passions that we should share rather than gatekeep.
And you shared a brilliant story about how someone influenced your cyber journey from being a great mentor. So what are the characteristics of a great mentor?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to be in it not for yourself, but for others. There are those that put their hands up to mentor that are doing it to look good on paper or look good to a boss or on a CV. And, excuse me, they are the ones that are doing it for the wrong reasons. You want to do it because you have a passion and you have knowledge that you want to share. And those are the people that make the most impact on others. You think about when you have a conversation with somebody that knows their subject material, that wants to share their journey and their story, and it resonates a lot more with you and it's more impactful. So those are the people that make great mentors.
It's true. I think that selflessness and the want for other people to grow. Whereas I have seen before where people talk about mentorship and maybe they're in it for the wrong reason of just like, how can I look better if I say I've got more mentees? And can you share about how you've overcome fighting the prejudice of not having certificates? Because I really enjoyed that conversation because you've done brilliant in the cyber industry, and now we're lucky to have you in Australia. So yeah, could you share more on that?
Absolutely. I think for me, my journey into cybersecurity has been a very meandering journey. And like you mentioned in my intro, I've pretty much sat in all of the cyber and tech seats. So I feel a little bit like Goldilocks. I've tasted the sweet, the salty. I've sat on the chair that was too soft, too hard. And I think that's one of the things is it's always learning is an evolution. You're never going to stop learning. And I think if you do stop striving for knowledge and stop wanting to learn, that's when you become stale. And especially in the tech space, everything is moving so swiftly that having that desire to learn. For me personally, I did not have an interest in formal education. It doesn't sit well with my personality type and my learning style. Stick me in a classroom and my brain will go on a little holiday and it may or may not come back. So everything I have learned has been hands-on, on the tools. If I can relate it to what I'm doing at the time, it sticks in my brain a lot better. And for me, especially if you are reading somebody on paper, reading somebody on a CV, and they don't have those qualifications, it's always come across as being quite a blocker of getting your foot in the door. So selling yourself in such a way where you lack those qualifications, those formal pieces of paper. Because a piece of paper can only show that you have learnt a thing, but it can't demonstrate that you can apply that learning in a practical sense. So for me, it's having to frame those learnings in a way that resonates with somebody that is reading you from paper. If you can get past that hurdle and get into that face-to-face interview, that face-to-face conversation, then obviously you've got more of an opportunity to sell yourself and your skills. I had a great example where I was working in a role and everybody in my team around me had numerous qualifications, you know, the Microsoft this, the CISSP, all of those desirable qualifications. Yet when it came to the engagement with the client, I was the only one with the practical and hands-on skills that could solve that problem. So it's being able to demonstrate that knowledge without a piece of paper backing it. And I had a chip on my shoulder about this for so long. And I think with age comes wisdom and maturity. And it doesn't bother me as much as it used to. But I do have days where I think, I should probably go and do something. But it's that work-life balance, right?
Yes, the number one motivator in the whole of Australia is work-life balance, what people look for. And it also shows you're a great example of you embody it. You don't need a certificate to say, hey, I did this. Like the amount of times that I've helped companies recruit people, I've never looked at someone's degree and said, hey, can you actually show it to me? It's like, hey, what have you done with all of that learning? And so if you already are that learning, then, you know, you need to take people from their experience, not from a piece of paper, I think.
Absolutely. And I think that was one of the things and key differences moving to Australia and being on the job hunt. And again, it circles back to mentorship as well, is you look at job adverts that can be quite intimidating where that, you know, the hirer says must hold the following qualifications or X amount of experience. So that's always a barrier for those wanting to break into the industry, and where mentorship again becomes more important because you're saying to these people, yes, you don't have ABC qualification that they're looking for. You look at an entry-level role and they're asking for somebody with this degree, 5+ years experience, and it's immediately turning those people off that we actually want them to break into the industry, bring their knowledge, bring their life experience, their diversity, because that's what's going to make the industry stronger in the future.
And on your point there as well, I would influence anyone to just apply. Like, don't get like, how can I explain this best? Saying, it's okay to apply to jobs and they should send a response to you saying, hey, you didn't get the job if you're not suitable, but maybe you can keep progressing with a role. So do apply even if you're not 100%. Because I hear that where people haven't applied because they're like, I don't have this, I don't have that. If someone sees your potential and they like you as a person, then you'll progress and grow. And on your point about the Australian culture, like I really enjoyed our last conversation because you were saying the Aussies, everyone she'll be all right, mate. Like, and I love it. It's that how you going kind of mentality, isn't it? But how can our attitude of she'll be all right affect the future of cyber?
I think it's a double-edged sword. Our she'll be right attitude means that we're not scaremongering, we're not panicking. But on the flip side, there are areas of cybersecurity where we may be just a little bit too casual and we don't take ourselves seriously enough. For example, moving into the space of AI, everyone is so keen and so eager to embrace it and keep up with the Joneses and not be left behind in this AI race that, we'll just put the solution in. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. So that she'll be right attitude, pardon the language, can come back and bite you in the bum if you don't think about the big picture. Where's my data going? Who's looking after it? It's in the cloud. It'll be fine. So that's where that she'll be right attitude, I think, is a very much a negative. But in saying that, the she'll be right attitude is also really good because it's like, we don't have this, but no worries. We've got this. We'll figure it out. So again, double-edged sword.
It really is, because we had David Lucci on the podcast, the head of cyber at Flybys, and he was talking of the idea of perfection as well. Like, you can't get cyber wrong because that can result in a lot of mal and everything that happens beyond that. So yeah, I think we need to take it a bit more serious, don't we? Instead of she'll be all right.
Absolutely. I think though the word that you used there was really good, was perfection. And I think if we are designing for perfection, nothing is ever going to get implemented, because as fast as technology is moving, as soon as you decide that this is perfection and this is what good looks like, good has moved over here.
Yeah.
So it's that old sort of agile technologies, fail fast.
Yes.
Because if you sit and wait for perfection, nothing is ever going to happen.
And how can we, like, what is going on and out there in terms of the world site? How is it evolving? How can we keep staying ahead?
Well, I think that's the thing. And it comes down to, you need to get all of your ducks in a row and move them together. So that adage of technology being a three-legged stool. So you've got your people, your process, and your technology. We're moving fast in the technology space. The process is struggling to keep up. It's like it's moving with technology, but it's a few steps behind. But what we're forgetting is that people space, because people at the end of the day are the one variable that isn't going to change. There are always going to be people involved in cyber. And if we don't move the people at the same pace as we're moving our technology and our processes, then that's where we're going to struggle. And it's not just moving people in terms of their education or our investment in people, but it's also their understanding as well.
And I'm a big advocate of emotional intelligence, and I think increasing that, like others' awareness, self-awareness, they're big proponents of how you turn up to work and you collaborate in a team. And what is the importance of collaboration? Because you've obviously seen different organizations. You're a consultant in New Zealand. You've worked in government. You've done all this, but yeah, what's the importance of that collaboration?
Well, I think collaboration is really important, and it's one of the big things with cybersecurity. Historically, cyber's always been seen as the blocker. And there was a meme that went the rounds not so long ago with a guy who had a black t-shirt on that had "no as a service." And it was used as an analogy for the cybersecurity department. And I think what it comes down to is that awareness. People see cybersecurity as the blocker, as the no department, because cyber isn't really great at communicating. We don't communicate or understand the drivers from the business and the stakeholders around us. So all they see is cyber going, you can't do this, you can't do that, because they don't understand either. So it's that communication being a two-way street. Cyber needs to understand how to communicate with the business and what their motivators are, because that way you can explain better. So rather than it coming across as a no, rather, we can do this, but in a better way together and collaborate.
And how can you grow communication skills like that? Like, would you recommend books? Would you recommend podcast? Like, yeah, how have you grown your great communication skills?
Well, I think for me, I like to describe myself as the cybersecurity Babelfish. So I don't know if any of you have seen Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but Babelfish goes in the air, translates everything. And, you get a whole bunch of project people in a room working on Project A for cyber. You've got your project manager, you've got your architects, your engineers, GRC, the business stakeholders, and they all sit together and have a meeting about the project. They all walk out of that meeting with what they think is a clear understanding of the direction. But nobody speaks the same language. So it's understanding how to translate architecture into tech speak, into audit speak, into general everyday user, C-suite. They all speak different languages. So it's being conscious of who your audience is that you're speaking to, their knowledge and comprehension level, and trying to relate it back in a way that resonates with them, that they understand. So use real world examples. Maybe scale back the tech speak and the terminology if you're speaking to somebody. The way I describe it to some people is, if you were to talk to your neighbour over the fence and tell them what you did for a job, what language would you use compared to if you were at a conference with a whole bunch of other cyber people? What language would you use to have that conversation? Completely different words.
And that's that emotional intelligence, isn't it? Of knowing, okay, others' awareness, how should we communicate to these? But I also think that there's a characteristic in there that you've embodied, which is growth. And it's the wanting to learn. Like, you've worked across the whole of the stack because you've been curious. And I sense that the high achievers, people who do very well in the world, they're just curious and they are addicted to growth. They want to keep learning rather than, okay, I went to university to do that because other people told me to do it. Now I've got it. Now I need a 9-to-5 job just to do that. And then it's like you're at that destination disease. It's like, only when I retire, I'm happy, or only when I get the degree, when I get the certificate. Whereas I sense that growth element is always key, and especially for communicating, because you've learned, okay, maybe the stakeholders, if we get into all the nuances and start talking these random, because in cyber there's so many different terms, so it's like,
absolutely.
If you start talking to the stakeholders, they're like, what are you talking about? But you like talk about business outcome, whereas your cyber people, like to your point at the conference, you can talk in depth.
Absolutely. It's quite funny you say that. I recently put together, and it was something I threw together in an afternoon, was a guide to cybersecurity acronyms. And I went down a rabbit hole. It ended up, I was like, I'll just do a one-pager, just put together the common stuff. I think it turned out to be about 9 pages.
Wow.
With examples of what each of the acronyms stood for. But I was like, this is why cybersecurity is so intimidating for those that are outside of the loop. Because we sit there and we talk about IDAM and MFA and a SOC. Guy walking down the street isn't going to have any idea what you're talking about. A SOC is something you put on your foot. But they're useful acronyms. You have a crisis, you've got a whole bunch of guys, and it's like, we need to lock down MFA on, this account. And it's like, cool, it helps. But coming back to your original point, like that curiosity and that why, these are the people that we want to bring into cybersecurity, those that challenge the norm, that ask questions, that are curious, because they're the ones that are going to delve and deep dive and help evolve our maturity of that space.
And what would you recommend to someone who wants to break into cyber, or a newbie, someone, who's transitioning? What would you recommend to all of those?
Well, I guess the thing is not wanting to niche yourself. I've found on my journey that if you have a particular interest area, pursue it, learn more, be curious, but don't pigeonhole yourself, because this whole industry is evolving, and it's evolving at a really rapid pace. But don't get me wrong, I have huge admiration for people who wake up one morning at 14 years old and go, you know what? This is what I want to do for the rest of my life, and this is my life goal. I know quite a few people who have done that, and they are very successful. But it's not for everybody. And especially now when, cost of living and all of that sort of thing, people are deciding to go to university, racking up huge student loans, getting student debt in a specialist area, and then they don't end up working in that space. So I think learning online, there's so much learning online that you can do now. If you're curious, build a home lab. I've got a home lab at home. I muck around. We've got some Raspberry Pis. We've got some instances. I've set up Defender for IoT to protect my robot vacuum cleaners, so nobody's gonna hack Vincent's way. They're safe. But be curious, and it's all stuff that you can translate to put on a CV as well. There are some really good free courses online, some really cheap paid courses online, great events, networking, talk to people. And I think that's the big scary. You look at a lot of our people in cyber and people in tech, slightly on the neurospicy side. So getting out there and networking. And for me, it was a big thing. I'm probably the least people person you'd ever meet. So it drains the social battery. But taking that first step out of your comfort zone and actually going to, like a last Tuesday of the month, which they have here in Melbourne, or getting out to events, things like B-Sides or Beer Ops, and just talking to other people in the industry is really key, and especially for those looking to break in. Because you find most people are actually really nice and really welcoming. It's like going to the gym and seeing the massive bodybuilder guys and thinking, oh, they're so scary and so intimidating. But they're the nicest people in the gym you'll ever meet.
Yeah, it's that courage, isn't it? And knowing that everyone's thinking of themselves anyway. So networking, it's just a skill that you create, just like communicating. It's a skill. Everything's a skill, and many people want to help you on that journey. I've even done cyber wardens, and as a business owner, it's like, well, how can I protect my business? What do I need to know about? There's so much information out there. And bringing this into land, Phillippa, is there any last wisdoms, anything you'd love to share?
I think always be curious, always ask questions, always challenge the why, but also always be your authentic self. I think there's enough worry in the world and enough problems out there that trying to be somebody you're not is exhausting. And if you are authentic, people are going to connect with you more genuinely. Your story is going to be a lot stronger, and you're only going to go further.
That's great. That is brilliant. And how can we follow you? Is there anywhere that we can understand some of your content or anything like this?
Absolutely. I am definitely nowhere near maxed out on LinkedIn followers. So look me up on LinkedIn. Happy to entertain connection requests, especially if they come along with dad jokes. But yeah, definitely follow me on LinkedIn. I try and drop new content at least once a week, generally quite topical in the cyberspace. If I do a Friday post, it's going to be fun. More technical earlier in the week, because I think by Friday we just want something light to read on the train on the way home, don't we?
You're very right. You're very right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been fantastic.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
If you like this episode, please like and subscribe. It helps the growth of the channel so we can keep interviewing some of the best minds that there are here. Thank you very much.